say thank you to Dr. Gutgold. Truly, this project could never have come together without her. She downplays how much work she really put into this project. I got involved in my freshman orientation. Last year, I was sitting, trying not to fall asleep, as different people were telling us about what we have to do and where the hub is and things like that. And Dr. Gutgold was there. She's the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs. She was talking about her role in the Schreier Honors College, and she said, offhand, my personal work, my personal career is writing about women in American politics. And if you'd like a copy of my book, come down, and the first person who asks gets a free copy. I thought that sounded pretty good, so I ran down and I asked her for a copy of her book, and she said, when you're done reading it, we can talk about it. It was Paving the Way for Madam President, the book that is basically the academic version of Madam President, the children's book. And when we did talk about it, we just kind of talked about our ideas about women in politics today. We talked about female figures in Congress and the Senate. We talked about potential characters for 2016. And she knew that I was an English and an education major, so when she told me about this idea for a children's book, I said, that's great. Oh, you should think about doing that or something like this. And she said, well, why don't you look at the manuscript and tell me about this? I was extremely intimidated. I was 18, trying to tell an established professor with plenty of credentials behind her what she should do with her book. But it worked out really well. I got an email saying, hey, I love all of your suggestions, but I can't use them without making you a co-author. So I turned to my dog and freaked out for a little bit, and then once that was over, we went into about a year's worth of editing. And this past winter, I had the absolute honor to go to my old elementary schools in my school district and go to the middle schools and the high schools there back in Chester County, Pennsylvania, and talk about this book, read it to the children that I grew up being a camp counselor to. I actually got a shout out for an old job I used to have. And one of the things that really made me a little bit sad was when I was reading the book, there were at one of the elementary schools, there were some girls sitting in the front row who kept saying things like, oh, you're so pretty. Or, oh, that girl, that woman in the picture is so pretty, and they're talking about Patricia Schroeder. Or they're talking about Margaret Chase Smith, and I said, oh, that's great, thank you. But in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, that's not the point. It's not about the looks. I mean, we've heard 1.5 million feminists talk about how looks don't matter and should be focused on the ideas, but at the same time, we're kind of tired of hearing that. We're really, really tired of hearing women say, please pay attention to my ideas. But we still focus on women's outfits. Hillary Clinton's outfits versus Sarah Palin's outfits. It should be Hillary Clinton's ideas versus Sarah Palin's ideas, but truly that's not what we hear about on SNL. So with this book, I really wanted to make it the type of book that a 9-year-old me would have wanted to read, would have begged her father, who's back there with his camera, to purchase from a national park, bookstore, and it's amazing that it's become such. I really wanted these women to be highlighted for all of their achievements, to be relatable enough to say, oh yeah, she played basketball, or she was in a bird club, or she liked to read, or she wanted to fly planes, but also, she was the Secretary of Transportation. She was the President of the Red Cross. She was Secretary of State. These women accomplished amazing things, and when I went to those elementary schools to talk about this, I wanted both the boys and the girls to know it's totally possible for this to happen in your lifetime. And every time we support women like this, from either side, we get the chance to make it possible in someone's mind, so that in their 5th grade yearbook, instead of saying, I don't know, I want to be a monkey when I grow up, you put down, what do you want to be when you grow up? You put down President of the United States. And it's okay if you change your mind, but women need to start thinking like this. And young girls need to start thinking like this, which is why we wrote this book. And thank you for letting us talk and interrupt your coffee.